Mario Party has been a series staple on every console since its release on the Nintendo 64. It's hard to imagine not seeing it show up again and again, similar to Mario Kart and Smash Bros. And while we love its quirky nature and potentially friendship-ruining minigames, it didn't land on the Nintendo 64 without any controversy. Mario Party 1, as it was later known, since there were multiple sequels afterwards, was rated E for everyone, though in particular the game targeted a young audience. It released in Japan in late 1998 and in North America in early 1999. The game has 6 playable characters and the gameplay takes place as a traditional board game. You roll a dice, you move along a board collecting coins and items to try to be the first player to reach a star. After every player has had a turn, or if the player lands on a special space, a minigame starts. Now, these minigames ranged from simplistic button mashing to coordinated use of the analog stick. The Nintendo 64 was one of the first consoles to have a controller that included an analog stick as a main feature. The goal was to provide players with more mobility and camera control. It was designed to be able to detect 360 independent directions. This was naturally far superior than the 8 independent directions that we were used to that were detectable on the D-pad. The analog stick would allow for people to input precise movements, especially in this case for Mario Party minigames. This, however, would be where the trouble started. The Switch Joy-Cons aren't the first time Nintendo has gotten into hot water over a controller's stick. While some games required precision, 5 games, Pedal Power, Tug of War, Castaways, Paddle Battle, and to a certain degree Deep Sea Divers, were games that gameplay involved having the player rotate the control stick as fast as humanly possible in order to win. Now, while Nintendo's intention was for players to use their thumbs, players quickly found out that they could use the palms of their hands to rotate the stick much quicker. Now, while this is ingenious for the sake of winning coins in minigames, this was an issue because of the nature of the analog stick's rough surface, leading to blisters, burns, lacerations, punctures, cuts, and even apparently in one case where a child needed to go out and get a tetanus shot. I don't know whether to admire this individual's competitive spirit, or to just stare blankly at this script and silently shake my head. The result of this, however, were some pretty unhappy parents, and those unhappy parents went to file complaints. Now, Nintendo settled these complaints, which came from the New York Attorney General's office, which is why there's no record of a lawsuit actually being filed. Christy Pritchard, a spokeswoman for Attorney General Elliot Spitzer, said the following: "The alarming thing was how little time some of these children spent playing the game before they were injured. One parent said their child had only been playing the game for about 15 to 20 minutes when they got a second-degree burn." Now, Nintendo representatives could not be directly reached for comment, but when you tried to get in touch with them about the issue via the Mario Party hotline, you heard a recorded message that recommended players avoid injuries simply by manipulating the joystick with their thumb and forefinger instead of the palm of their hand. Nintendo quickly settled as they were desperate to avoid any sort of bad PR. Microsoft was launching the Xbox into the market, which meant there was definitely going to be an increase in console competition. Under the settlement, Nintendo agreed to pay $75,000 to cover the cost of the New York Attorney General's investigation, as well as provide up to 4 pairs of gloves to anyone who could provide the necessary proof of purchase for Mario Party and called the hotline. Nintendo agreed to commit up to $80 million for gloves, having at this point sold 1.2 million copies of the game. That assumes that everybody who owned Mario Party would take advantage of the offer. In reality, the situation was that about only 100 families had filed complaints. Beth Levwin, a spokeswoman for Nintendo, stressed that the cost was most likely going to be substantially less than $80 million. Stating the following: "We've only had around 90 complaints in the year that the game has been out on the market, and we don't know how many people will take advantage of this offer." She went on to describe the gloves as being similar to weightlifting gloves with padded palms. The Attorney General's office estimated the cost per user could be as high as $18. I would assume that $18 calculated shipping and other things and wasn't the direct cost of the gloves to Nintendo, as those were likely produced and manufactured for much cheaper. Mr. Spitzer, who was the Attorney General of New York, went on to say the following: "This settlement is good news for parents throughout the nation. Nintendo has agreed to take responsibility for the effect of its games on young people. I am very pleased that my office was able to work with Nintendo to ensure that this vital piece of protective gear is readily available to our children." It was a very strange time for Nintendo indeed. But how did this go on to impact future titles? Well, future Mario Party titles would never use this type of minigame until Mario Party Island Tour for the Nintendo 3DS, which uses a circular pad instead of a full joystick. Mario Party 1 was never released on the Wii's Virtual Console service, only Mario Party 2, and it's commonly speculated that the minigames were exactly why. Nintendo didn't want to have another lawsuit on their hands, no pun intended. In Mario Party Superstars for the Nintendo Switch, we saw Tug of War and Castaway return to the franchise, games that were very much responsible for the original complaints. This time, however, they featured warnings discouraging players from using the palms of their hands to rotate the control stick, to prevent not only injury but damaging the Joy-Cons, especially considering the Joy-Cons don't come cheap. On November 2nd, 2022, Mario Party 1, for the first time in over 2 decades, was seen again on a Nintendo console. Re-released for the Nintendo Switch Online 64 expansion pack, it includes a warning when you boot up the game not to use the palm of your hand when rotating the control stick. Clearly, they need to make things absolutely crystal clear, as they may get into legal trouble. Well, that's been it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content on the channel, then consider subscribing. Make sure you hit that notification bell because I upload at incredibly strange times. If you like the content that you're seeing here today, then feel free to check out some of the other videos on the channel. I'll catch you all in the next one.